Much, Gina. It's my pleasure to welcome you all today to today's webinar, How Academic Libraries Are Using the Project Outcomes Toolkit. This webinar is co-sponsored by ACRL's Project Outcomes Editorial Board and the Value of Academic Libraries Committee. Today's webinar was planned by a subcommittee of the ACRL Project Outcomes Editorial Board, including Sue Hunter from the University of Gulf Humber in Ontario, Canada, Jennifer Arnold from Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina, and myself, Becky Croxton from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I also serve as the Vice Chair of the Value of Academic Libraries Committee and am an ex officio member of the Project Outcomes Editorial Board. So once again, welcome. In today's webinar, we'll hear from two academic libraries who have been using the Project Outcomes Toolkit, LaMonica Sanford from Georgia College, and Kate Langen and John Sugar from Western Michigan University. Before we begin, I'd like to outline a few basic ground rules for our time together. We want this to be an open, productive, and friendly conversation in which we can all learn from each other. I'll let you take a moment to review the ground rules. It's now my pleasure to introduce our presenters. Our first presenter is LaMonica Sanford. LaMonica is an assistant professor and assessment librarian at Georgia College. She serves as the library liaison to the College of Education. Prior to becoming a librarian, she worked as an educator in the public school systems. In 2021, she will be the ACRL chapter's college council representative for the Georgia Library Association. After LaMonica's presentation, we'll hear from Kate Langen and John Sugar from Western Michigan University. Kate is an associate professor at Western Michigan University Libraries and the department lead for instruction and outreach. She is the subject liaison to the humanities departments. She is currently serving as the vice president for the Michigan Academic Library Association. And Jonathan Sugar is an assistant professor at Western Michigan University Libraries. He received his MLIS degree from Wayne State University and holds a BA from the University of Michigan. His research interests include user experience, management in libraries, and assessment. He has presented on approaches to library programming, technology, and reference referrals. And just a bit of housekeeping, we will have time at the end for an open Q&A with the presenters, but feel free to enter your questions in chat as they come to mind, and we'll be sure to address them at the end after both presentations are complete. And so now I would like to welcome LaMonica to share. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let LaMonica take the reins.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. And can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your slide 28.
Okay.
Good morning and good afternoon. Georgia College is located in Milledgeville, Georgia, in the central part of the state. We are part of a consortium, which is the University System of Georgia. The larger institutions within the University System of Georgia include the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State University, and Georgia State University. Georgia College, much smaller than the aforementioned, is the state's designated public liberal arts university. To get a sense of our university's mission, Georgia College is a member of the Council of Public Liberal Arts Colleges, also known as COPLAC. For reference, the other COPLAC institutions we sometimes compare ourselves to are Eastern Connecticut State University, my alma mater, SUNY Geneseo, University of North Carolina, Asheville, Truman State University, University of Wisconsin Superior, the Evergreen State College, and the University of Alberta Augustana campus in Canada. The vision of Georgia College is to become a nationally preeminent public liberal arts university. Georgia College has approximately 5,600 undergraduate students and 1,300 graduate students. The student ratio is approximately 17:1. The library at Georgia College consists of 10 librarians and archivists, 7 staff members, and a number of student workers. The library building contains 3 floors with open, reservable, and walk-up study spaces on all 3 floors. And reservations can be made online or in person. Students can check out rooms for up to 4 hours per day. During the spring semester, at the beginning of the pandemic, and after the iPads and ACRL'S counting opinion surveys were submitted, our library decided that we would do our first ACRL project outcome survey. Prior to that, the library director, Dr. Chandra Walker, and I attended a project outcome workshop during the 2019 Georgia Libraries Conference, where we learned about the survey tool and how we could use it at our institution. We discussed starting with the space survey as a way to gauge what recent users thought of our spaces, what benefit did they receive, and what was positive about the spaces, and what could be improved. To me, at that moment in time, this was a good choice for the first survey to conduct, as it was potentially the least personal of the surveys, especially in the midst of a pandemic, especially when stressors were at an all-time high. If it had been another point in time, I may have considered another survey to start off with, or may have started off with 2 surveys. So we started with the space survey. To get an idea of the spaces we have available, I have included some images in this slide and the next few slides. In addition to the open study spaces and tables you see in this image, our first floor consists of 6 study rooms located next to our Books and Brew coffee shop, and several non-library departments such as the Center for Testing, the Department of Disability Services, and the IT Help Desk. I mention the other departments because it's important to note that we have a number of campus departments that reside in our building that we refer to as our building partners, who are not under the library's supervision, but share the library building with us, as we all play an integral role in carrying out the mission of Georgia College. Located on the second floor are our reservable study rooms. The studios at Russell Library provides access to resources to assist Georgia College students with their study, research, and assignments. Each room has a different focus and purpose. The studios include the Anatomy and Physiology Studio, the Experimental Tech Studio, Video, Audio, Editing Studio, and Photography Studio. There is also an instruction room on the second floor, which holds 35 people comfortably, that can be reserved by library staff and other campus departments. And as you can see, there are more additional open study spaces on this floor. The library shares this floor with the Learning Center, which provides academic support for core and other courses. The university's Writing Center was also located on this floor, but was moved to the building next to us. The third floor of the library is where the bulk of our study rooms are located, with 29 reservable study rooms. These are the rooms you see behind the glass windows. Most of our stack area is located on this floor, along with a variety of open study areas that don't require reservations. This floor is shared with the Center for Teaching and Learning and 2 conference rooms that can be reserved by campus departments. What attracted us to Project Outcome was first, it measured patron outcomes. It would allow us to capture what our patrons thought of our services and programs. And more specifically, it would allow us to see the value of our programs and services through the eyes of our patrons and what they got out of our programs and services. It would help us to measure patron outcomes both quantitatively and qualitatively through scaled and open-ended questions. Secondly, we were attracted to Project Outcome because with this tool, benchmarking our survey results with similar institutions and nationally was possible. With benchmarking capabilities, we would be able to share this information with our stakeholders. The third thing that attracted us to Project Outcome was that Project Outcome surveys for academic librarians were field tested by 54 institutions across the United States prior to being open. These library surveys were used at real libraries, both big and small, by real librarians, experienced and with little experience in surveys, and that feedback was captured prior to the toolkit being launched. Lastly, the fact that Project Outcome was a free and relatively easy to use tool made it very attractive to us. Listed on the screen are the 7 different survey topics to choose from in Project Outcome. The survey topics include digital and special collections, events and programs, instruction, library technology, research, space, and teaching support. As you can see, the survey topics are broad and address various services and programs that are offered in academic libraries. As previously mentioned, we chose the space survey topic to start with, which would focus on our reservable spaces that could be reserved either online or as a walk-up. This would allow us to create the survey, distribute the survey, see the results, and assess and discuss the results and determine if this could be a viable option for us in terms of outcome-based surveys. For the space survey, I worked closely with Tanya Darden, the library's technical associate, who will also graduate this week with her MIS from Valdosta State University. Tanya is in charge of setting up our reservation system for our study rooms and studios, which are heavily used by our students. Students can reserve rooms using our LibCal system, which can be seen in the image on the left. And this is the desk where students go to check out a study room. Student workers, for the most part, staff this desk. Our first step was to decide what type of information we wanted to glean from the survey. Do students like our study rooms? Are they comfortable? Are there any suggestions to make the study room better? What can we do within our budget to make the study rooms better? Are these spaces helping students study and collaborate? These are the questions we thought we would answer and the discussions we would have after we received the survey responses. We previewed the space survey questions with the understanding that we could not change the questions, the question order, or delete any questions. According to ACRL's project outcome, the survey questions have been designed and tested specifically to be reliable measures of perceived impact, and the goal is to ensure that project outcome can collect consistent baseline data from all participating libraries. And we were good with that, especially since, as I stated before, the project outcome surveys for academic libraries were field tested by 54 institutions across the United States prior to being open. That these surveys were coming from ACRL and were field tested gave us a level of confidence. So here are the space survey questions we previewed and ultimately agreed to use after discussion. As a result of using this space contributed to my ability to learn something new. Using this space makes me feel more confident about my ability to achieve my goals. I am likely to use this space again in the future. And after using this space, I am more aware of the library resources and services available to me. Participants could either respond with strongly disagree, neither, agree, strongly agree, or non-applicable to the first 4 questions. The last 2 questions were the open-ended questions. What did you like most about this space? What could the library do to improve this space? While the survey allows you to create 3 additional questions, the decision to not add additional questions was based mostly on the fact that we didn't want to cause fatigue to survey participants with additional questions that were not necessary, and the 2 open-ended questions at the end of the survey would allow users to provide suggestions and comments. For this survey, at that point in time, the questions as they were served our purpose. And just a little note that even though we decided not to add additional questions on this particular survey, we are considering adding them to some of our other surveys. When deciding on whether or not to add additional questions, we also use the guidance provided by Project Outcome. One of the aspects I really like about Project Outcome is the resources page, which provides tutorials on how to use the various parts of Project Outcome. The resources page also provides information on survey planning and creation, data collection and analysis, advocacy, and case studies. A short survey introduction was written to state the purpose of the survey along with our Georgia College logo, so students would know it's really from Georgia College, and with the name that many of them knew. The survey was successfully sent to 2,466 unique users, students who utilized the study rooms from fall semester 2019 to March 2020, when the campus closed due to COVID-19. Many of these unique users were regular users in our study room. And then we waited. And then we sent out a survey reminder and waited again. Once the survey closed, a total of 203 students responded to the survey. While we would have liked more responses, with all the disruptions that semester, we were pleased. Once the survey closed, we were excited. The status of the survey was set to archived, So no more responses could be collected. The quick report option was selected to download our survey results. Here are our survey results. 92% of survey participants felt the space contributed to their ability to learn something new. 90% of survey participants felt using the space made them more confident in achieving their goals. 95% of survey participants will likely use the space again. And 84% of our survey participants were more aware of resources and services provided by the library. We were very pleased with our results for the scaled questions, as well as with the visualizations of our survey results. However, the two open-ended questions provided more information on what we were doing right and what we could do better with our spaces. On the screen is the quick report I mentioned. With the quick report, you are able to add the responses from the open-ended questions to your report, or you can export them. You can also add custom pages and content to your quick report. The box at the bottom of the screen shows the page if you need to create a report from scratch. These reports were accessible and approachable for librarians with little to no experience in surveys, for librarians who have not had any or limited formal training in surveys, to librarians who have had experience with surveys. And it's a good tool for those libraries that may or may not have a dedicated person for this task or don't have the software that can produce these same results. This slide shows some sample responses to our open-ended questions. For the first open-ended question, the responses were mostly favorable. The sentiments automatically assigned the responses for the open-ended questions of what did you like most about this space range from neutral to very positive to more positive. The assignments of neutral for this particular survey usually meant the question was left blank or the response was such that it was neither positive nor negative as written. Many of the responses referenced the quietness of the rooms, lack of distractions, the whiteboards and technology of the rooms, and being able to collaborate and work in small groups. Survey participants also offered their constructive criticism for the second open-ended question of what could the library do to improve this space? A number of responses made suggestions regarding more comfortable furniture, longer reservation period for rooms, the cleanliness of rooms, noise control, the heating and cooling of rooms, and more markers and whiteboards. And while we loved the compliments from the previous question, it was really important for the library to know what wasn't working and what we might be able to do to improve. Since space is at a premium in our buildings, we needed to convey the message to our stakeholders, if necessary, that not only are our library spaces being utilized, but that these spaces are valued by our students. Sure, we have the reservation data from LibCal that shows our spaces are being utilized hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly. But the data from our reservation system and the Project Outcome Space Survey data together empowers us to tell a more complete story with input from the stakeholders that benefited most from the study rooms, our student users. The next survey we will test out will be the instruction survey during spring 2021. Previously, most of our instruction sessions were held in person and usually in our instruction and active learning classroom that you see here. For this survey, I collaborated with Jolene Cole, the library's instruction coordinator. While one of my roles as the assessment librarian is to oversee surveys the library sends out, I think it's important and necessary for me to collaborate closely with my colleagues who are directly over various programs and services within the library as one of the steps in creating a culture of assessment within our library. One of the first things we did was look at the instruction survey from Project Outcome. We then compared them with the questions we have from our current survey. While the questions from Project Outcome were not the same verbatim as our existing survey, we discussed it and ultimately decided that the responses from the new questions would elicit the type of responses we needed to see the value students placed on our instruction and view students' perception of whether or not the instruction benefited them. There was one additional question that we wanted to keep from the original survey and some non-identifying demographic questions we wanted to ask that we asked in our original survey. So we discussed if we really needed these questions or not, and ultimately decided that we did. During the rest of December and the first couple of weeks of January, we will test out the survey. And since we will be using Qualtrics to deliver the survey to students, we will test out Project Outcomes bulk upload template and tool without having to upload the non-identifying demographic questions if we choose not to. As you can see, the logistics of getting this instruction survey out to survey participants has taken a little more time than getting the space survey out to students. But again, it was important for Jolene and I to have these conversations, just as it was important for Tanya and I to work together with the space survey, and for the library director, Dr. Walker, and I to discuss how Project Outcome could be used for the library in general, so everyone gets what they need, and that the survey process was collaborative from beginning to end. And lastly, the surveys are just one part of the puzzle, but a very important part of the puzzle that can assist our library to tell our story and our worth, our value to our campus.
Thank you very much, LaMonica, for that extremely informative and insightful presentation. There are several questions that are coming from the audience that we'll be sure to circle back after Kate and John's presentation. So thanks again. John and Kate, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Kate and I are going to walk you through how we used Project Outcome in collaboration with other data sets for a project that spans our departments. More importantly, we will discuss how Project Outcome open-ended questions allowed us to tap into how students value the university libraries. Western Michigan University is a mid-sized public university with a current enrollment of approximately 20,000 students. In 2019, the WMU University Library System was made up of a main branch, 2 smaller branches, and an archives and regional history center. We had 5 departments: IT, resource management, research services, user services, and instruction and outreach. Kate and I both work in the 2 public-facing departments. I'm in user services and Kate is in instruction and outreach. In the fall of 2019, user services had service points in the main library and the 2 branch libraries. The employees were a blend of 1 faculty member and 13 staff, and around 40 student employees. Our primary responsibilities include staffing the desk from 7:30 a.m. to 2 a.m., fielding walk-up questions, circulation, reserves, interlibrary loan, and coordinating spaces such as study rooms. We were also the primary department for all evening and weekend service. Instruction and outreach is made up of faculty rank librarians. In the fall of 2019, there were 11 members, with 2 librarians in the education library, 1 in the music and dance library, and 8 in the main Waldo library. INO's primary responsibilities include curricular support by way of instruction, workshops, individual research appointments, and outreach programming. As I mentioned previously, our departments intersect at multiple points, and there is frequent collaboration. The project that Kate and I started to work on in the fall of 2019 was an example of such a project. We realized that, based on anecdotal evidence, we needed to develop on-demand student orientation modules that introduce students to the library system, especially the spaces, services, and the purpose of an academic library. We knew we wanted the content in the on-demand modules to be different from information literacy. We knew that we wanted the content to be easily found by users requiring little or no interaction with an employee. We also knew we wanted this content to be scalable for new student and employee training. Our primary research question for this project was how to identify the concepts that students need without assuming too much. We knew we wanted student input, but how could we get student input without being too disruptive with yet another user experience study or contributing to survey fatigue? So we decided to turn to existing data. We already shared 1 set of existing data. Both departments use Ref Analytics to track questions asked at a variety of service points and by a variety of modalities, so we knew that we would have plenty of data. Initially, we hadn't considered using project outcome survey data because the instruction and outreach department had just started using the toolkit that semester to assess instruction. We decided to incorporate project outcome while we were already studying the Ref Analytics data. Kate realized that the surveys from the instruction seemed to echo many of the concepts and questions being asked at the user services desk. We weren't sure what we would find, but we wanted to see if the data from Ref Analytics and project outcome intersected, and if the project outcome would add to our understanding of what concepts we would need in the orientation modules. To get the project set up, we submitted a blanket expedited HSIRB application that gave us access to all librarian instruction data, not just Kate's classes. The HSIRB also protected us with any unforeseen identifiable data, since there was a blend of paper and electronic assessments being used. The HSIRB also gave us some flexibility in growing the study in case we needed to add on more data sources. We were also committed to the content analysis approach to the data. Content analysis is essentially a method of looking at existing communications and qualitative sources of data. We coded Ref Analytics first since it was more concrete, less open-ended, and a larger pool of data. We then mapped project outcome data. We did develop a workflow to create the content, but we will not be going into the details of this today. We limited the scope to reference transactions from fall of 2019, asked by students at the user services desk of the main branch of the university libraries. We excluded transactions related to circulation, technology, directional questions, and questions asked by faculty and staff. In all, we had 585 entries. Kate and I coded the first 50 together, made a primary set of themes, some data cleanup, and then I went back to code the rest. The 5 themes we landed on are academic libraries, understanding academic libraries, understanding resources and what experts are available, library search, how to use the library search to locate materials, the library website, including an overview of content and understanding the library website organization, a look at physical spaces, including an introduction to the building and the branches, how to navigate the physical collections, and other spaces such as group study rooms. We also looked at user services, including access hours, how to use interlibrary loan, how to use e-reserves, and printing. The question was, did project outcome data tell the same story as the data from Ref Analytics? Not surprisingly, the answer is yes. Kate will now walk you through the project outcome data.
Thank you, John. Oh, it's not letting me forward. Awesome. Okay, here we go. So for those who are new to project outcomes, we used the instruction assessment data. And in instruction, there are two basic types of surveys. There's the immediate survey, and then there's the follow-up survey. The immediate surveys are typically administered at the end of an instruction session, and then the follow-up surveys can be administered days or even weeks after an instruction session. Each survey has a blend of quantitative and qualitative questions. On the screen, I'm showing you examples of the instruction immediate survey quantitative questions, and they are ranking questions that students can add feedback. We were more interested in the open-ended questions, which were for instruction. What did you like most about this session? And what else could the library do to help you succeed in your classes? The follow-up assessment survey open-ended questions had a slight variation in the language and was more reflective with using past tense, such as what was good and what else could the library have done for you to succeed. So we looked at the immediate instruction surveys from the fall of 2019 to match the parameters from the analysis of Ref Analytics. And we looked at the immediate surveys also because they were more heavily used by I&O at the time, and therefore we had more results to look at. So in the fall of 2019, we had 455 complete sets of immediate instruction assessment data, and we had only 56 complete responses for the follow-up assessment data. And also due to the slight variation in the questions, we just decided that to have a cleaner study, that we would just look at one set of data. Question 5 responses were overall more specific to instruction and commented on the actual information literacy session in general. So a lot of this comments were about the concepts being taught, the teaching style, or the relationship of what was being taught to the assignment at hand. The responses to question 6 is really where we found the wish list from our students, and it helped us tap into what they found valuable and what they wanted to have available at the university libraries. Building a report was actually quite easy in Project Outcome, and this is one reason why our department, our Instruction Outreach Department, opted or adopted Project Outcome. We really like the idea that it was pre-made and that it was just basically plug and play, and extracting the information was equally as easy. So from here, you'll see, I'm just going to click through a few slides. So you would go to build a report from the toolkit, and then you would go in and select what type of survey you wanted. So we only used instruction. Monica talked about using the space survey, and you could immediately choose what set of data to look at. And then here we obviously selected immediate. Then we were able to quickly get to the open-ended responses. So we just threw out all of the quantitative data and went to the open-ended responses. And then from here, this next slide is the next step was that I would just select which question I wanted to export and then download just the sets of answers for those questions. So I had two spreadsheets that I was working with. I had one spreadsheet for question 5 and one spreadsheet for question 6. So we were looking at about a data set from 32 classes across 4 colleges of instruction sessions taught by 11 librarians. We had 5 graduate classes and 27 undergraduate classes. There was a total of about 433 complete responses there were 433 individual responses for question 5 and 445 responses for question 6. There were quite a few empty responses, and I just indicated those numbers. Question 5 had far fewer empty responses than question 6. So with question 5, comments to this question, like I said, focused on instruction sessions, teaching styles, and activities. And the important takeaway from this information is that students were very clear that they truly valued that interactive and applied instruction and that hands-on learning style. And this response actually guided us and informed us of how we wanted to design the orientation modules. We knew that we wanted to create modules that reflected that were interactive and hands-on. For question 6, I was really interested in the 96 responses that related to the academic libraries. And I actually dug a little deeper and did some more coding. And from those 96 responses, it was clear that students were truly valued the need for programming. The majority of questions for academic libraries and the purpose of an academic library on campus is that they wanted more programming, more frequent programming, and they wanted programming instruction or workshops earlier on in their career at the university. So if we compare the data and the response counts from the different sets, you'll see that the responses ebb and flow depending on how the students, where the data was tracked. So for example, if we look at Ref Analytics and we look at library search, and which library search we use Primo, and library search is our brand for the actual universal search on our website. So we use Primo, just wanted to clarify that. So when we're talking about library search, you'll notice that that's really talking about how to find a book by title, how to find a book in general or by topic, and then also for physical space and how to apply what they learned in library search. So using that call number and then going to navigate the physical space. So those were extremely high recorded in Ref Analytics, which are the questions that students were asking at the desk. And then in question 5, that need for library search tends to go down a little bit and then almost disappears in question 6 for project outcome. So comparing the data completes the picture of what students value and what they want. And we were able to do this without adding to survey fatigue. And I'm glad Monica also mentioned that. That was also we were very conscious of that decision for students. There were a few outliers in our data. Some of them were out of scope. There were 5 that were specific or out of scope or out of our hands. There were 5 that asked for that a writing center be integrated into the library. There were 3 comments overall in project outcome regarding food. A few other people wanted better opening hours. And one outlier is that I did end up flagging 28 responses in question 6 and flag them for our marketing department because I realized that some of the comments they were asking for programs or services or resources for things we already had. So this indicated that there was a need for better, or there was room for more robust marketing. So to end, our takeaway is that with project outcome, don't consider this an isolated or that it needs to be used alone. Project outcome can be used in collaboration with other data sets. For us, we decided to use SpringShare Ref Analytics, and we found that the data talked to each other quite well and really gave us that nice complete picture. We also recommend looking closely at those open-ended questions. My practice is to use the paper surveys, and I give those to students at the end of class, and then I collect them, and then I go back into project outcome and I enter the data. It's actually not as time consuming as it would appear, but it really forces me to spend time with some of the data and get a look into what students need. And also with partnering doesn't necessarily need to be with the data. John and I are from different departments, and we realized that our shared data and our unique sets of data we were able to partner in that way. But we were also able to identify other entities in the library and external to the library for who might want to benefit from what we found. So in the end, the value of using qualitative data from project outcome and ref analytics was that our instincts were affirmed, and we knew we had a good idea about what students valued with library services, programs, and resources. And now we had a confirmation from two distinct sets of info. We also had a clear concept, a clear vision for what concepts to cover, and also for instructional design and how to develop the orientation modules. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to questions.
Thank you very much, Kate and John, for another very informative presentation. I am going to come back to my presentation slides. I had several questions pre-prepared, but the questions coming in via chat were there were many and very robust. So I am going to just go ahead and ask questions on behalf of our participants, and whichever of our three presenters who would like to respond, we would most welcome your input. So the first question is an individual who's wondering if you have to use all of the questions provided, or can you leave something out if you don't want to ask it with respect to one of the project outcome survey tools.
So I can answer that if you'd like.
Yes.
Okay, so all of the questions that are, I guess, that are on each of the survey, you cannot get rid of them. You can't change the order. You have to keep them there. So that's one of the things that you have to understand and that you have to be okay with, because you're not able to switch them around. And they're doing that, I guess, so that there is consistency in the responses. However, if students don't, I think this relates to another question. I was looking at the chat. I guess if students don't want to answer it, they don't have to answer it. They can skip it and go to the next question.
Terrific. Thank you for answering that. Let's see, I'm scrolling down to see if I can find the next question. Another question, very specific to managing the surveys, wondering if the NA response factor, I'm going to just start over with that. This individual asked, I am wondering how the NA responses factor into the overall stats. Are they ignored or are they counted? And then she goes on to say, in past experience, the NA responses can greatly impact the overall results of a survey.
Hi, Becky. It's Gina. I can answer that one.
Okay, great.
In project outcome, the NA responses are not assigned a value in the Likert scale questions, so they're not averaged as part of your library scores. They are, however, counted in the number of responses you see on your reports.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next question we'll direct to LaMonica. LaMonica, were you the project lead? And can you comment on any issues or success getting the survey into the larger assessment cycle? Thank you.
Yes, I was the project lead for that. I guess, however, as I stated before, I collaborated, I guess, with several people on the surveys. So I think we worked equally as hard. I think to try to get it into the assessment cycle, and I'm very lucky in this aspect, is I have a very supportive administrator. So if there's something that I want to do, if there's something that I want to get into the assessment cycle, she is usually for it. And also, I guess I work with colleagues that are also very, I guess they're very supportive, and they like to collaborate. I don't have any issues. I think, I guess most of the stuff that we've done so far has been successful in that, I guess after we get it into the assessment cycle, we're able to discuss and we're able to see room for improvement, I guess, as well as acknowledge our successes.
Wonderful. And then I have another question for LaMonica, kind of brings your response forward. This individual would be interested in information on suggestions for getting leadership buy-in to execute the project outcome surveys. In other words, how to convince the assessment office and provost office that this is a good thing.
So, let's see. So one of the things, again, that I said is that I have a very supportive administrator. She's a very good library director. So I guess one of the things that she likes to see is making sure that we have data. So we're starting to use our ref analytics. I guess we're starting to use all of our other SpringShare products, which produce data, because that's what they really, really want to see, especially at that level in terms of the provost and the president. I guess they want to see how we are making an impact. So I think the more data that you can have, I think that would be helpful.
Terrific, thank you. The next question could go to any of our presenters. Do the surveys allow for multiple submissions from the same person? Is there a way to denote only unique responses?
This is Kate. I don't remember offhand. I tend to use the paper results, and I administer them directly after my instruction session. So that is a way to avoid duplications. Maybe Gina could answer this question about the IP. It might have to be from IP address. There's a way to administer an instruction assessment survey with a URL. So it'll go to an online form, and then the student can just fill it out that way. The form doesn't have any identifiable information, so there really is no way of knowing if there are duplicate forms. I do also like the paper forms because I tend to get more results back that way. I tend to get a better rate of return on my survey. So that's one way that I try to improve my results.
Thank you. And another question, this question is from me actually, is do you have other instruction librarians at Western who are also using this survey? And do you compile all of the results across all of the librarians in the sessions that they teach?
Yeah, so the majority, I'd say at this point, all of our librarians in instruction and outreach are using Project Outcome as the instruction assessment tool of choice. That's what we've adopted. And the way it works in Project Outcome is each librarian goes in for each instruction session that we develop our own survey, and then we identify it by course name, prefix, and numbers and date. So we are able to, and when you go in to review the surveys, you can immediately see which course has an assessment survey, and then see how many responses have been submitted if it's an electronic submission. So each librarian is responsible for their own survey. And then when you build a report, you can compare results across just one librarian, across, you could even choose just by several instances of the same class, or you could compare multiple librarians and their results.
Thank you so much for answering that question. And I hope that that also answered a couple of questions that came in through the chat, quite related. Moving on to the next question. Are the librarians at Western Michigan or Georgia College assessing students' IL learning / skills, and if so, how?
IO, is that information literacy? Just clarify. We are only using, we are only using project outcome right now at Western to assess instruction. And instruction means that it is an information literacy session related to a specific class. We are starting to develop practice of using the surveys for workshops, but that's more for programming. But when it comes to information literacy concepts, yes, that's what we're using it for.
Okay, great. And another question, I'm not sure if this would be better responded to from Gina. Is there a plan for project outcomes to offer an information literacy skills survey?
There are no current plans to add survey topics, but this is something we can definitely bring to the editorial board. Please email us at acrl@projectoutcome.org. I'm going to pop it in the chat with any ideas for new survey topics or improvements to the toolkit, and the editorial board will definitely discuss them.
Terrific, thank you. And next question, is there a way to add a question that has preset options, like which librarian taught your section today, A, B, C, or D? Or can we only add open-ended questions?
Hi, this is Gina. I can take this one as well. Currently, there are some preset multiple choice questions that you can add to your survey, as well as open-ended questions. We are actively working on adding custom multiple choice questions, and we hope they'll be available in early 2021.
Thank you, Gina. Is there support to libraries who have questions about the project outcome surveys? Are there videos on how to set it up and download, etc.?
Can I answer that?
Of course.
Yes, there are a lot of resources. I guess in my presentation, I referenced the resources page, and it is an extremely valuable tool. There are tutorials, there's information on data analysis and collections. There is also information on case studies, I guess, so you can see what other universities are doing. So it is extremely, extremely helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you, LaMonica. This next question may be best directed to Kate. It's respect to how do you enter the paper surveys? Is there a back-end option of doing that?
Yeah, there is. So basically you log into Project Outcome, you go to the survey management dashboard, and you go, you find your instruction session in the list of surveys that are there. And then there is a very clear, simple link to entering the paper survey responses. And I just go through and I mark, there are the 5 quantitative questions and then the 2 open-ended questions. And frankly, the responses to the open-ended questions are never a complete sentence. They are usually only 5 words max, maybe a few smiley faces, which is always nice to see. But it really takes about 20 seconds per survey to do, if that. So it's a very simple process.
Terrific, and thank you. And we are at 1 o'clock. Let's see, I'm doing one quick last look at the bottom few questions. I think we pretty much covered the questions. If you feel that your question, you still have questions, I recommend you reaching out to the presenters, and here are their email addresses, as well as the email addresses of our planning team. And the recording of today's session, as well as the PowerPoint slide presentation, will indeed be sent out to you along with a short survey. Many thanks again to our presenters and to our attendees, and also to the ACRL Project Outcomes Editorial Board and the Value of Academic Libraries Committee for co-sponsoring our session today. Many thanks, and I hope you all have a great afternoon.